Satanism is a broad term referring to a group of social movements comprising diverse ideological and philosophical beliefs. Their shared features include symbolic association with or admiration for Satan, who Satanists see as a liberating figure. It was estimated that there were 50,000 Satanists in 1990. There may be as many as 100,000 Satanists in the world. Particularly after the European Enlightenment, some works, such as Paradise Lost, were taken up by Romantics and described as presenting the biblical Satan as an allegory representing a crisis of faith, individualism, free will, wisdom and enlightenment. Those works actually featuring Satan as a heroic character are fewer in number, but do exist. George Bernard Shaw and Mark Twain included such characterizations in their works long before religious Satanists took up the pen. From then on, Satan and Satanism started to gain a new meaning outside of Christianity. Although the public practice of Satanism began with the founding of the Church of Satan in 1966, historical precedents exist. A group called the Atheistic Satanism was founded in Ohio by Herbert Arthur Sloan in 1948. Satanist groups that appeared after the 1960s are widely diverse, but two major trends are Theistic Satanism and Atheistic Satanism. Theistic Satanists venerate Satan as a supernatural deity, viewing him not as omnipotent but rather as a patriarch. In contrast, Atheistic Satanists regard Satan as merely a symbol of certain human traits. Despite criticism from a myriad of other religious groups, there are signs that Satanistic beliefs have become more socially tolerated. Satanism is now allowed in the Royal Navy of the British Armed Forces, despite opposition from Christians, and in 2005, the Supreme Court of the United States debated over protecting the religious rights of prison inmates after a lawsuit challenging the issue was filed to them. Contemporary Satanism is mainly an American phenomenon, the ideas spreading with the effects of globalization and the Internet. The Internet promotes awareness of other Satanists, and is also the main battleground for the definitions of Satanism today. Satanism started to reach Eastern Europe in the 1990s, in time with the fall of the Soviet Union, and most noticeably in Poland and Lithuania, predominantly Roman Catholic countries. Theistic Satanism. Theistic Satanism is a form of Satanism with the primary belief that Satan is an actual deity or force to revere or worship. Other characteristics of Theistic Satanism may include a belief in magic, which is manipulated through ritual, although that is not a defining criterion, and Theistic Satanists may focus solely on devotion. Unlike Liberating Satanism, Theistic Satanism believes that Satan is a real being rather than a symbol of individualism. Luciferianism. Luciferianism can be understood best as a belief system or intellectual creed that venerates the essential and inherent characteristics that are affixed and commonly given to Lucifer. Luciferianism is often identified as an auxiliary creed or movement of Satanism, due to the common identification of Lucifer with Satan. Some Luciferians accept this identification and/or consider Lucifer as the light-bearer, and illuminated aspect of Satan, giving them the name of Satanists and the right to bear the title. Others reject it, giving the argument that Lucifer is a more positive and easygoing ideal than Satan. They are inspired by the ancient myths of Egypt, Rome and Greece, Gnosticism and traditional Western occultism. Palladists. Palladists are an alleged theistic Satanist society or member of that society. The name Palladian comes from Pallas and refers to wisdom and learning. It has no relation to Palladium or the Palladian style of Andrea Palladio. Our Lady of Endercoven. Our Lady of Endercoven, also known as Atheistic Cultus Satanas, was a satanic cult founded in 1948 by Herbert Arthur Sloan in Toledo, Ohio. The group was heavily influenced by Gnosticism, and worshipped Satanas, their name for Satan. Satanas was defined in Gnostic terms as the serpent in the Garden of Eden who revealed the knowledge of the true God to Eve. That it called itself Atheist is a reference to the ancient Gnostic sect of the Atheists, who were said to worship the serpent. Atheistic Satanism. Liberating Satanism. Liberating Satanism is a philosophy founded in 1966 by Anton Son de Larvae. Its teachings are based on individualism, Epicureanism, and I for immorality. Unlike theistic Satanists, LaVeyan Satanists are atheists who regard Satan as a symbol of man's inherent nature. According to religionstolerance.org, LaVeyan Satanism is a small religious group that is unrelated to any other faith, and whose members feel free to satisfy their urges responsibly, exhibit kindness to their friends, and attack their enemies. Its beliefs were first detailed in the Satanic Bible and it is overseen by the Church of Satan. Accusations of Satanism. Historically, some people or groups have been specifically described as worshipping Satan or the devil, or of being devoted to the work of Satan. The widespread preponderance of these groups in European cultures is in part connected with the importance and meaning of Satan within Christianity. Christianity. Pagans celebrating Pan, Odin, Perkness or other pagan deities were often claimed by the Catholic Church to be worshipping the devil and his crones and minions. Many Gnostic groups have been regarded as Satanic, with its prominent details implying Lucifer, or the serpent, as being a true god or prophet that liberated Adam and Eve, while the God of the Old Testament is regarded as a demiurge. Hegemonius accused Mani, founder of Manichaeanism, of being Satanic when Mani said that Jehovah is the devil god which created the world, and that he who spoke with Moses, the Jews, and the priests is the Prince of Darkness, not the God of truth. The witch trials in early modern Europe, in particular, the notion that witches congregated at a witch's sabbath in order to serve the devil. Gilles de Rais was a French nobleman who was tried and executed for the murders of hundreds of children in quasi-satanic rituals. Johann Georg Faust. Many instructions, in German and in Latin, for making a pact with the devil were attributed to him. These were collected and published in Germany in a few of the volumes of Das Kloster. Urban Grandeur. Although set up by the Catholic Church, a very famous document, in Latin, of a pact with the devil he allegedly wrote has been preserved. People involved in the poison affair, such as Catherine Chase and Etienne Guiberg. The documentation from their trial is the principal medieval source for information on the Black Mass. The Marquis de Sade, described by Iwan Bloch as being a fanatic Satanist. His works graphically described blasphemy against the Catholic Church, such as an orgy resembling a Black Mass conducted by Pope Pius VI in the Vatican. In 1865, the anti-Vatican Italian poet Gesù Carducci published his poem Inno a Satana, praising Satan as the god of reason and expressing religious hatred towards Christianity. Many adherents of the decadent movement, such as the Polish author Stanisław Przybyszewski, the Belgian artist Far copyright Lycian Rops, and the French poet Charles Baudelaire either called themselves Satanists, or created overtly Satanist artwork and literature. Some French movements widely described as being Satanist by French writers of the time. The most well-known description available in English is the 1891 novel La Base by Gilles Carl Huysmans. However, there were numerous other well-known personalities in France that were related to the circles Huysmans describes, such as Joseph-Antoine Boulon, Stanislas de Guatta, Henri-Antoine Jules Boys, and Joseph copyright Fin par copyright Ladin, who either wrote about Satanism in France, or were accused of being Satanists themselves. Freemasonry was described as being Satanist in the completely discredited Taxil hoax. At least two Satanic sects existed in France in the 1930s. One was led by Maria de Nagluska, and had rituals dedicated to Satan and Lucifer. Another, led by a former Catholic priest, celebrated an inversion of the Latin Mass, which included the phrase in nomine Domini Dei Nostri Satani Luciferi Excelsi. Islam. The Yazidis, a minority religion of the Middle East who worship Mliktaus, are often referred to as Satan worshippers by some Muslims. Mandaism is a branch of Gnosticism generally not referred by the Muslims as Satanic, but in fact a probable example of Sabians as mentioned in the Quran. As a Gnostic sect, it shares principles regarded as Satanic in the Muslim world with Yazidism. Popular music. Black metal has often been connected with Satanism, in part for the lyrical content of several bands and their frequent use of imagery often tied to left-hand path beliefs. More often than not, musicians associating themselves with black metal say they do not believe in legitimate satanic ideology and often profess to being atheists, agnostics, or religious skeptics. In some instances, followers of right-hand path religions use satanic references for entertainment purposes and shock value. Most of black metal's first-wave bands only used Satanism for shock value. One of the few exceptions is Merciful Fate singer King Diamond, who follows LaVey Satanism and whom Michael Moynihan calls one of the only performers of the 80s satanic metal who was more than just a poser using a devilish image for shock value. Glenn Benton, vocalist and bassist of the band Dayside, once openly claimed to be a practitioner of theistic Satanism, and has spoken publicly to profess staunch anti-Christian sentiment. The controversial Dissection frontman John Nahr paragraph DTVEIDT openly spoke about his chaos Gnostic satanic beliefs, being a member of the misanthropic Luciferian order, and called his band the Sonic Propaganda Unit of the MLO. Norwegian black metal artists such as Euronymous from Mayhem and Infernus from Gorgoroth have also identified themselves as Satanists and actively promoted their beliefs. Numerous church burnings that covered parts of Norway in the early 1990s were also attributed to youths involved in the black metal movement, which included people promoting theistic satanic beliefs and strong anti-LaVeyan attitudes. However, the legitimacy of such actions as satanic endeavors, rather than simply rebellious actions done for publicity, is something that has been doubted by even some of those who contribute to the genre. Organizations, the Church of Satan. On Walpurgisnacht, April 30, 1966, Anton LaVey founded the Satanic Church. The Church of Satan is an organization dedicated to the acceptance of the carnal self, as articulated in the Satanic Bible, written in 1969 by Anton Sonder LaVey. First Satanic Church. After LaVey's death in 1997, the Church of Satan was taken over by a new administration and its headquarters was moved to New York. LaVey's daughter, the High Priestess Carla LaVey, felt this to be a disservice to her father's legacy. The First Satanic Church was refounded on October 31, 1999 by Carla LaVey to carry on the legacy of her father. She continues to run it out of San Francisco, California. Temple of Set. The Temple of Set is an initiatory occult society claiming to be the world's leading left-hand path religious organization. It was established in 1975 by Michael A. Aquino and certain members of the priesthood of the Church of Satan, who left because of administrative and philosophical disagreements. TOS deliberately self-differentiates from COS in several ways, most significantly in theology and sociology. The philosophy of the Temple of Set may be summed up as enlightened individualism, a enhancement and improvement of oneself by personal education, experiment and initiation. This process is necessarily different and distinctive for each individual. The members do not agree on whether Set is real, or not, and they're not expected to. Sessionism, in theory, is similar to theistic Satanism. The principal deity of Sessionism is the ancient Egyptian god Set, or Seth, the god of adversary. Set supposedly is the Dark Lord behind the Hebrew entity Satan. Set, as the first principle of consciousness, is emulated by Sessions, who symbolize the concept of individual, subjective intelligence distinct from the natural order as the black flame. Members of the Temple of Set are mostly male, between the ages of 20 and 50. Order of Nine Angles. The authors Perfax Sneld and Jesper Peterson write that the Order of Nine Angles represent a dangerous and extreme form of Satanism. The ONA first attracted public attention during the 1980s and 1990s after being mentioned in books detailing fascist Satanism. They were initially formed in the United Kingdom and are presently organized around clandestine cells and around what it calls sinister tribes. The Satanic Temple, based in New York, represents a variety of Satanism that uses the literary Satan as a mythological foundation for a non-supernatural religion, which it believes can be used to construct a cultural narrative that can usefully contextualize life experiences and promote pragmatic skepticism, rational reciprocity, personal autonomy, and curiosity. As it lacks the creed of elitism and social Darwinism that define the Church of Satan in favor of other characteristics of the literary Satan, it contrasts itself by its desire to actively participate in public affairs and provide outreach to the wider public. This has manifested in several public political actions and efforts at lobbying, with a focus on the separation of church and state and using satire against religious organizations that it believes interfere with freedom and the pursuit of happiness. The only requirements to be a member are to support the tenets and beliefs of the organization, and to name yourself a member. See also, Prometheus, Satan in Literature, Satanic Ritual Abuse, Shaitan, References. Further reading, Michelet, Jules. Satanism and Witchcraft, The Classic Study of Medieval Superstition. ISBN A978-0-8065-0059-1 are considered the first modern work to discuss Satanism. Cavendish, Richard. The Black Arts, An Absorbing Account of Witchcraft, Demonology, Astrology, and Other Mystical Practices Throughout the Ages. ISBN A978-0-399-50035-0 A summary of the history of witchcraft, Satanism, and devil worship in the last part of the book. Parsentino, Bob and Gretchen, Satanism Grand Rapids, Zondervan 1995. Zacharias, Gerard. The Satanic Cult. ISBN A978-0-04-133008-3 translated from the 1964 German edition by Christine Trollope. Kornosign, Mikhailo. Hail Satan! ISBN A978-0-557-06489-2 Lodek, Nickdom. Satan's Roar, Medway, Gareth. Lure of the Sinister, The Unnatural History of Satanism. ISBN A978-0-8147-5645-4 Noctulius, Emperor. The Path to Satan. ISBN A978-1-4348-2055-6 Massimo Introven, One Satanisti. Storia, Ritai Miti del Satanismo, Sugarco, 2010, external links, Religious Tolerance page on Satanism, Satanism at DMOZ.